What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and this is the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge. Now, we first saw this phone from a distance at Galaxy Unpacked in January, as sort of a teaser after the unveiling of the new S25 lineup. And frankly, this phone garnered even more attention than those phones did at the time. Now, after a few more months of speculation, rumors, and some additional teasers from Samsung themselves, this S25 Edge is officially official. Samsung was kind enough to give me some brief hands-on time with it, and I'm going to fill you in on everything you need to know about this all-new super slim smartphone. The three big questions I had, and probably you have as well, are what's so special or different about it? Where exactly does it fit within the rest of the S25 flagship lineup? And why did Samsung decide to launch it in the first place? And I'll try and answer those questions as well as touch on some other important things too. The first thing you should know, of course, is that this phone goes on sale on May 30th. You can pre-order it today via Samsung.com and various third-party retailers. I'll leave some links down below in the video description to the best pre-order deals if you're interested, and it is available in the US and around the world. So first and foremost, this new S25 Edge is obviously a very thin variant of the current S25 flagship. It's precisely 5.8 millimeters thin, not including its camera bump, which makes it about 1.4 millimeters thinner than the regular S25 and S25 Plus, and about 2.4 millimeters thinner than the S25 Ultra. Now, that maybe doesn't sound like a lot, especially since we are talking millimeters here, but when you actually hold this phone in your hand, it does feel noticeably thinner. In fact, Samsung told me that the hope is that anyone who's interested in this phone, or who maybe is a bit skeptical about it, has the opportunity to see it, feel it, touch it in stores in order to actually experience it for themselves. Because it's one of those products that you do have to hold and play around with to really get a sense of its uniqueness. In fact, I can honestly say that I didn't expect the S25 Edge to look or even feel that different from the regular S25s I've used now for months. But as soon as I picked it up, I immediately noticed that super slim form factor. I think comparing it side by side to the other S25s is the best way for me to try and show you how thin it is. And you can take note of the placement of the 5G antennas, for example, or the power and volume buttons to sort of see how much thickness was shaved off of the S25 Edge. It's important to note that all the important physical bits are still here on this S25 Edge, including the USB-C charge port at the bottom, the speaker grill, even the physical SIM card tray. It's just that the phone itself now is ever so close to literally being as thin as some of those physical features. I mean, if it were any thinner, truly, I can't even imagine how Samsung could have kept the USB-C port or the SIM card tray. And even that 5G antenna barely has any of the frame of the phone around it. Looking at that, this is probably the easiest way for you to see how thin this phone is if you do have a regular S25 at home. In making this phone so thin, it's fair to assume that there maybe had to have been some compromises with the specs and features, but actually, Samsung also made it a point to say this phone's thinness didn't mean they had to drop anything important. Size-wise, this is a 6.7-inch smartphone, the same size as the S25 Plus, actually. Not only is it thin, but you still get a big old screen to enjoy. And it's a Quad HD dynamic AMOLED 2X display with a 120Hz refresh rate, the same spec and viewing experience as the S25 Plus, which I've always felt was sort of the best value within the S25 lineup because of its Quad HD screen. The front display glass, by the way, it's also kind of new. It's the latest Corning Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2, engineered for enhanced durability and arguably more similar to what we have on the S25 Ultra, just without the extra anti-reflective coating. Around back, the S25 Edge looks actually a bit different than the other S25s, mainly because of its camera setup. More on that in a moment, but it's built from the same premium materials. It's a Gorilla Glass Victus 2 rear cover and aluminum frame, but it actually weighs significantly less than the similarly sized S25 Plus, some 27 grams lighter, which again, may not sound like a lot, but when you have both of these phones in your hand, you notice that too. Oh, and as far as your color options, you've got 3 to choose from: titanium silver, titanium icy blue, and titanium jet black. The lighting in this room didn't do the colors any favors, unfortunately. Sorry, Samsung. The titanium silver, I think, is pretty obvious. It's that raw metal hue. Icy blue is fairly subtle, and I wish maybe that was more of a saturated shade. Titanium jet black is probably my personal favorite of the trio, actually. And while there aren't any exclusive Samsung color options this time for these phones, I made it a point to mention to Samsung that people do like color, so maybe they'll take a hint for next time. So one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the price. This S25 Edge will retail for $1,099 for the 256GB model and $1,219 for the 512GB spec. At that price, it puts it firmly between the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra, which in my mind kind of makes sense, especially when you consider the fact that this phone does have the same screen as the S25 Plus, QHD, which is better than the regular S25, and inside, it's still powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Elite processor that's made for Galaxy, paired with 12GB of RAM, and you of course get all the Galaxy AI goodies that have arguably been the standout features for the regular S25s since their introduction earlier this year. For all intents and purposes, this new S25 Edge, spec-wise, is most similar to the S25 Plus, but there are 2 exceptions that I think are important to understand. And I'm sure you can already guess what those are. Around back, I'm sure you noticed already that this new S25 Edge only has 2 camera lenses, compared to the 3 or more on the other S25s. You do get a 200 megapixel main lens on this phone, which benefits from the same pro visual engine that graced the other S25s, yielding you various visual enhancements. And you also get a 12 megapixel ultra-wide shooter, which is the essential secondary lens in my mind. What's missing is a telephoto lens, which of course was mainly used for that well-known Samsung super zoom. The zoom on this new S25 Edge tops out at just 10x, which on the one hand is still useful enough, but I do feel like so many Samsung fans have come to know and love the various zoom variations of these flagship phones. Samsung, however, also told us that most of their customers only ever use the ultra-wide, 2x, 5x, and 10x zooms. Nothing really beyond that, at least not regularly. So to them, this is the essential camera setup hardware-wise, with all the fun Samsung shooting modes and software support that still makes this a top 5 smartphone camera. The other aspect of this phone that I'm sure you're wondering about is battery life. Now, crammed inside this ultra slim form factor is a 3900 mAh battery, which is a tiny bit less than the regular S25, and about 1,000 mAh less than the S25 Plus. In addition, the battery itself here is still lithium-ion. It's not any new or special silicon carbon battery, so naturally one has to wonder if this phone might be the least likely to make it through the day on a single charge. And I unfortunately can't answer that just yet. I only used this phone for about an hour before I had to give it back, but Samsung says you can still expect a full day's use on a single charge, though that of course depends on your specific smartphone usage. On the bright side, you still get 25-watt wired charging, 15-watt wireless charging, and reverse charging via PowerShare. So this phone's thinness didn't mean taking out any other charging or power features, and you should be able to juice back up to 100% in about an hour. Now, frankly, the main question I had with this new S25 Edge was why this phone and why now? And Samsung had an answer to that too. They feel that folks want a thin, slim, more simple smartphone that's easier on the pockets, more comfortable in the hand, and that offers the basics the essentials, most everything that makes up a good or top-tier flagship smartphone without any of the extras or the gimmicks that seemingly only a small percentage of people actually use. That appears to be what this new S25 Edge is. It still offers everything you could want in a flagship Samsung smartphone. It takes away a couple of the over-the-top elements that most smartphone users maybe didn't take advantage of, and it's all packaged together in a more subtle form factor. It seems like super slim smartphones are going to be the trend now, and I'm curious, what do you guys think? Is this S25 Edge something you're interested in? Would you want to feel it out? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.